It's the first time in front of a live studio audience. So thank you guys so much for participating. And I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. So let's get started. All right, hello and welcome to the COLDCast. I'm your host, Dr. Anna Johnson of United States Cold Storage. I've been here for 11 years, and I'm Vice President of Corporate Development, Marketing, and the PMO. And thank you so much today for being part of the COLDCast. Today we have a very exciting event. We are coming to you live from the National Carrier Conference here in Naperville, Illinois. And we are going to talk to some of our distinguished industry experts on what's going on in the carrier market, how we think about some of the volatility that we've been experiencing, and just get their perspective on how they're keeping the cold chain moving. So if you guys want to kick it off, this is my co-host slash panelist, Mike Carlisle. So he'll say hello, and then the rest of you guys can introduce yourselves.
Hey everybody, I'm Mike Carlisle, the Senior Director of Logistics Operations here at US Cold. I've been with US Cold for 7 years now, and in this crazy industry for 19 years.
I'm Anna Dittoe with MegaCorp Logistics. I'm the Director of National Accounts at MegaCorp.
I'm Brent Higgins from Brent Higgins Trucking. I'm pretty much just the president there and guy that empties the trash or does whatever I'm supposed to do since 1997.
Kory Ackerman with K&B Transportation. I'm the co-owner of the company with my brother Brock, and I've been at K&B since 1991.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Magnus, General Manager of Midwest Logistics here at US Cold. Been with the company for about 9 years.
Well, thank you guys so much, and welcome to the COLDCast. We just heard from RXO Logistics about kind of the market, and we know that it's a very challenging market right now with low rates. So how are you guys ensuring that your companies stay profitable and also try and still stay competitive in this market?
I think it's about partnerships, and having partnerships, providing good service, setting up 6:30 a.m. Meetings with Mike at food shippers. No, but I think it's when you look around in our network, our top customers have treated us very fair during the downturn. We don't participate in a lot of broker freight. We're about 97% contract freight, so we haven't felt the effects probably as much as some people.
So the partnerships are important. So how do you maintain those partnerships?
Just basically providing good service to our customers, talking to them quarterly, weekly, monthly, whatever it takes to make sure that they're happy with what we're doing for them.
So did you have to raise rates for those partners over time, or how did you maintain like good consistent rates?
Yeah, I mean, we try to price our business. We don't pay attention what the market's doing, right? We don't really care in 2022 that the market was $5 a mile. We price business based off of what it costs to run a truck down the road.
Brent?
Yeah, that was very similar to what we do. We've had to pay a lot more attention to in what way our drivers behave. We started using our AI integrated cameras and stuff and keeping up with brake counts and everything like that. And what we learned was we were able to raise our fleet fuel efficiency overall, which did help with the fact that we're not able to get paid an entirely a huge amount of money right now. And it's just the way it is. We have to, equipment costs what it costs, and that just is what it is, right? So we have to figure out ways to become more efficient internally in order to absorb a lot of that lack of income.
And one thing we're really trying to stick with as a company. So the one thing I do want to say, US Cold is very much in the middle between the carrier and the customer's freight that you're actually moving. When you looked at the RXO graph that showed that crazy spot number, we're definitely trying to live much more on that contract rate that's just going up maybe 5%, going down 6-7%. So that's really the partnership that we try to hold with our carriers as well. And hopefully you guys see that effect that we're not coming and asking for a 30% rate decrease overnight, and we hope you wouldn't ask for a 30% rate increase overnight. So that's a lot of the things that we're doing as well.
Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say from a U.S. Cold perspective, I mean, with market changes, we need to adapt and evolve and finding creative solutions, for our customers. So really engaging, having transparency with our customers, but providing these solutions. There's things that we've done from a creative perspective, cost plus model, looking for different modes of transportation, whether it's, intermodal that will give, savings back to our customers and just really give these viable solutions to provide the service that, these customers expect.
What are some other ways U.S. Cold is helping to be more efficient overall and be more competitive?
Well, so we run the 6-month bid, and that's really going to benefit our customers, but as well as the carriers as well. What we saw, even in 2018, we'll go all the way back to the ELD mandates. A yearly bid just wasn't keeping up for either of us. It wasn't keeping up for U.S. Cold. It wasn't keeping up for our customers, and it was struggling to keep up with the carriers as well. That pricing to try to predict what's going to happen over the next 12 months. If I could do it, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. There's a lot of market intelligence out there, but there's nothing that's going to give you that far of a window to be able to know what's going to happen in 12 months. So we switched to the 6-month bid. In good times, it's hard to come back and maybe back off that rate, but it's something that's a necessity for us, our customers, and our carriers.
Are you guys seeing different frequency of RFPs, bid windows, things like that? Different formats?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing some customers that want to do quarterly RFPs, and at this moment, I'm all in for that because it does. We feel like there's a huge change coming at some point in time, according to the graph that Kory and them showed. And those guys did a great job and showed a whole lot of good information. And a guy like myself, I was asking this morning, who actually is doing that? And there is absolutely carriers out there that have the ability, I guess, possibly to absorb some of the costs that companies like ours like to try not to go there. But apparently, for the past 10 years in transportation, we've been in a constant evolution of how this business has changed. And it's not always, nobody ever likes change. That's a crazy word. Anytime I change something in my office and the way we do things, tempers flare and everything. But we have to learn to evolve in order to be sustainable and stick around here for a while.
Are you guys seeing any incumbent bids coming your way for RFPs, or are you seeing just they go to market with everybody?
I think the majority of the bids that we do are incumbent bids.
Okay.
If it's new customers, it would be just spot, like checking freight prices really would be the focus there. We see a lot of 3-month or 6-month bids. That would be the majority of what we're seeing. And that's probably dependent on the amount of freight that a person has. So the company, a company like U.S. Cold, there's so many lanes that you're bidding. 3 months may not be realistic. 6 months is probably more realistic on that. So smaller companies with smaller amounts of business, we're seeing 3
Are you
months.
guys also seeing less volume coming through?
Absolutely. Yes.
Oh, you can talk.
Yeah. We've seen a great reduction in volume, and most of our customers we've remained the incumbent with, and we've given some discounts to those customers as they've asked for. And there's just some lanes though that the target was so wildly swung in the opposite direction. We just couldn't imagine doing it, And in hindsight, it probably would have been more beneficial to us to just accepted those terms, if the volume would have remained. But, we come down and discount quite a bit. And let's just say we were doing like 15, 20 loads a week for this particular customer to this lane. We were only seeing 3 of them, where we were seeing 20. Even before the pandemic hit, we were seeing like 20 loads a week for some of these people. And going from 20 to 3 loads is a huge thing to overcome. You got anything on that?
Yeah. I think, from my perspective, I think it's, we have to be careful, if you get pressured into a low rate environment and you lower your rate by 5%, in my opinion, we're looking in the next year for asset people, double-digit rate increases. Obviously, everybody knows about truck pricing, trailer pricing, liability insurance. The question becomes is if you lower your rate today by 5%, and you need double digits today, and I think we can all speak freely about drivers, right? I think if you asked in the room who's given a driver a raise in the last 2 years, nobody's going to raise their hand, right? And so you have the driver market you got to go take care of yet. And I think that if you're working with your shipper and you walk in and you gave them a 5% reduction for 24, and then you go in next year and you need 10, well now you need 15%. And what kind of pushback do you get from your shipper if you succumb to the pressure of lowering your rate? When do you get back to where you need to get back to?
So they're somewhat taking advantage of the market and the opportunity.
Well, I think it's back to partnerships, right? I mean, if you have a good partnership with your shipper, you have to talk about these things, right? And I was at a customer last week down in Florida, and I mean, you go show the difference in truck pricing from 22 to 24, trailer pricing. And we can all say that what we paid for a truck in January of 22, it's still in your fleet today, right? And you financed it at 3%. But as we go year by year, I mean, truck pricing's up $30,000, right? In the last 2.5 years. I mean, a refrigerated trailer's up $15,000. And and you're financing today at 6.5%, 7% interest rate. So it's all things that we have to be aware of what's going on and view your partnership with your shipper, and each one's different.
Right. Anna?
So from a broker perspective, a lot of the opportunities that we're seeing, be it incumbent or new, is freight that no one else wants. So the very difficult freight, the multi-stop, or just really anything difficult. That's how we got our shot with US Cold and made our name with US Cold, really. And that goes across the board for all of our customers. So just from our perspective with the brokerage, that's how we've been able to maintain and grow market share, has been through that really tough freight. So our operations people don't necessarily love us, but it's how we are able to stay afloat.
Awesome. We can turn now to visibility. So, oftentimes, a consumer can track their goods anywhere, like in Amazon, you can track it from when it leaves the warehouse to your door, right? And so, we talked a lot about giving that visibility from a shipper's perspective to be able to see where their freight is. So, how do you guys think about that visibility and giving them that much visibility? And then, how do your drivers think about that as well?
So visibility has not been a very hard thing for us to achieve. It's just whether or not the integrations work properly. Forecasts has been a wonderful tool that we've integrated our TMS to, and most all of our customers have integrated to. We do have to actually spend some time proofreading it to make sure that the times are in there correctly, because typically we'll get a report card and it'll say something that doesn't really line up with what we know is happening there on a day-to-day basis. But the integration is pretty simple, pretty streamlined, not very costly at all.
Yeah, I think from a tracking standpoint, my brother and I were just talking a couple weeks ago about non-driving staff to drivers, right? I mean, and we look back pre-technology, we had like 6 trucks for every employee. Now we're at just over 4 employees to every truck, right? And so we were talking about this morning at the Carry Advisory Board. I mean, it's my night staff I have 7 people working all night long, and I mean the amount of emails to keep up with tracking. Even though we're tracking on ForeKites, the amount of emails that come from customers that are on ForeKites. That is my load on schedule. Man, you would think that we would be reducing headcount per truck, but at our company, it's increasing.
So do you think they're not, because you think about technology as a self-service tool, like if you can find your freight and you know where it is, why would you email? So do you feel like the behavior just hasn't changed, or that they don't have access to it? Like, what do you think the issue is?
So that we're on the ForeKites journey. we started it during COVID. It was probably the not the greatest time to start that. So we really put a big initiative on it in these last 13, 14 months. But you got to kind of crawl before you walk. Right now we're getting over 90% of our loads into the platform. Now the next tool is how do we integrate with our customers so that they can have a self-service tool to, we're going to do it through our customer portal. They're going to be able to log on to that, click on something and see the status of that truck. Whether it's going to be the map or just a location city, that's what we need to start offering to our customers. And, it kind of goes to what Brian was saying. We need to evolve to be able to show our customers, the tool is great, but if you're not using it the right way, that's what we're finding, that we need to be able to forward face that to the customers.
Yeah, because I wonder if over time people still email because if they have a problem, you can solve it versus going to the tool, having a problem, and then having to find somebody to solve it.
Absolutely. When we onboard a new carrier, it's everybody's got great TMS systems or a system that you can go here and self-service your load. Well, we're moving 80,000 loads a year. We don't have the capacity for someone to go in and click on each one of those if they have a question. So either it's an integration or it's some sort of piece that we need to forward face for them. And the reality of a tool like 4Kites is that not every load is going to get a question of where it's at. It's almost the exception base that, maybe that's the 2% of all your loads. But for us, if a customer is able to go in, click, see where that's at, that's a long-lasting impression. It's a partnership and a service for our customer.
We've also seen it, in addition to the added layer of protection that it gives with that visibility, which, is invaluable. We've also seen like a financial impact. So, say you click on these maps, it pulls up exactly the weather in the area, or if there's a road closure. We've been able to mitigate some of those late fees at receivers by proving that. Literally taking a screenshot of exactly what's happening, sending that, and then it waives the late fee. So if there's something that happens. So we've seen that financial impact, which, those can add up, and that's a huge advantage.
Yes, that's a good point.
I think
Brian?
one last comment too, utilizing these technology tools, it allows you to be more of a proactive approach rather than reactive. So at US Cold, it's really just giving us full transparency and visibility to, be proactive and communicate that, to our customers.
We're going to talk about fraud for a minute, and Mike, you might want to define this. So, I heard the comment that said fraud is plaguing our industry. So I want to ask you guys how you're dealing with that, but if you kind of want to give an overview of what fraud is to the people that are listening to this.
Sure. I'm sure you guys are pretty up to date with this, and we've seen a lot of either cargo theft. You'd almost call it trucking company identity theft. They're getting very, very intelligent on how they're stealing the information, and a lot of it's even opportunistic. An email that's sent to somebody or to a shipper that says, "Hey, I need you to change this bank requirement," and all of a sudden you change it, but nobody really verifies that. It's the simplest things. It's like phishing, the PH phishing, but it's plaguing the industry. There's a lot of double brokering happening. There's things like that we're seeing, but we're really staying ahead. And a lot of that, what we're doing is keeping with our incumbent carrier partners, knowing that they have a plan. So I don't know if that helps set you up for some of the questions.
You want to talk about double brokering?
Yeah, we definitely see an increase in that. I mean, internally at MegaCorp, we have all day long a very large department of carrier setup and compliance team. All they're doing is vetting our carriers. So we have a large carrier network. They're calling insurance companies. They're going through all these steps to verify that our carriers are legitimate. So then once we get through that process, on our operations side, we're speaking to dispatchers, but we won't give any information on any load until we actually physically talk to the driver. We have them get out of their truck, give a DOT number on the side of their truck. We're verifying their MC. We have a list of a lot of questions that they may not always love, but it's for protection for us, for protection for the customer, and ultimately themselves as well.
Are you running into this? As a result of that, are you running into catching people that are trying to do this?
Oh, all day long.
Yep.
I mean, we catch people, and luckily because our systems are so stringent, we've mitigated a lot of issues with double brokering, and it's not something that luckily we really have too many, the impact isn't been us because of the processes that we have in place. So that's how we are able to avoid it.
Okay. What are you guys saying?
Well, fishing is a serious expedition these days. And,
PH or F?
It's something, we have a third-party company that sends out emails, and I remind everyone, sit there and read out loud to them a lot what it is and what the latest caper is, or whatever you want to call it. But one of the latest schemes that we've seen is, say a broker or somebody, you got to be cautious when you're setting up a new broker, or if you're a broker setting up a new carrier, they will send you an email that says something about update your DAT, and it looks very real and very convincing, and your broker or your dispatcher clicks on that and puts their information in there, and heaven forbid they're an admin, right? Because that happens. And someone goes into your DAT website, they put all their credentials in, their emails. Next thing you know, they're booking a load from somebody, and somebody thinks that it's Brent Higgins Trucking doing it, but instead it's like at gmail.com or something like that. And we've been very fortunate that we have not been tangled up in that, but we've come very close.
We don't run a brokerage, so I can't speak on that aspect. As far as crime, we've seen an uptick. Some in the Philadelphia area, we've gone out and bought what we call a warlock to put on the back of our trailers, and we've had to quit going into certain areas in the middle of the night and time it up to try to be there 30 minutes before our appointment in some cities. So that's what I have on the fraud side.
Well, how do you secure highly valuable freight?
Well, we talk to our driver. If we have a $250,000 load, we'll talk to our drivers about what they have on for two reasons. One is we don't want our truck upside down in the ditch and have a $250,000 cargo loss. And I know there's other carriers that don't want to talk about it because they don't want their driver to know that they have that kind of value in the back of their trailer. So depends on which side you want to look at it. But we certainly want, at our company, we want to make people aware of what it is. Hopefully you can trust your driver that they're not going to go steal your $250,000 load. So.
All right. Well, we talked a little bit this morning about sustainability, but what are you guys doing, or what are your companies thinking about in terms of sustainability and reducing carbon emissions? Is there anything that you want folks to know on your journey to sustainability?
And you're speaking about specifically carbon emission?
No, I'm just talking in general.
Okay, just in
yes.
general. Well,
Just in general.
those two
carbon,
actually go
yeah.
pretty hand in hand
Yes, they
because
do.
efficiency
Yep.
reduces your use of fossil fuel, and it's one of the things that we drive most. Kory was talking about how in the last 2 years we've not literally handed out a raise, but however, what we have done is we've invented incentive programs where the driver got to give themselves their own raise, and we have a certain amount of criterias that are said that they meet, and if they do meet those criterias, they're funded for their incentives. So it's that program has paid for itself. It hasn't cost us anything. It was very tough for me to sell it to my wife and kids that helped me there, But I appreciate everybody, because it's hard for the leader to sometimes listen to people reject some of the ideas and stuff. However, all those people that are there working with you, your coworkers, your dispatchers, your safety guys, they're just trying to do their job and look out for you, because sometimes you get your mind going one direction, and I do appreciate anybody that ever resists anything that we're trying to implement there, because they help us to tweak that program and make it much better.
On our behalf, we've kind of taken a lot of the things out of the driver's hands. Idle time, if our truck idles for 2 minutes, it shuts off. We've gone to a smaller. We run a DDT 13 rather than the larger engine. We use on our refrigeration units, if the ambient air temperature is within 5 degrees of the temperature of the load, our unit, and it's on start stop, or it'll go into pause mode. Some shippers don't like it, right? I mean, if you have a 26-degree load on and it's 26 degrees outside, they'll call up and say, we can't get your unit to run. And you say, well, it's set up to not run that way. So, but But there's certain things like that where we're just trying to not use fuel when we don't have to use it.
Have you guys looked into alternative fuel? Any at all?
We are not currently,
No.
no.
Are you guys?
No. Most all of your major truck stops blend alternative fuel into the fuel already. And the percentage that they're putting in there is pretty much at the top of where we are. Now, we were speaking in the advisory board this morning about hydrogen cells. Those are alternatives to diesel, but really using something like a biodiesel or something that's organically grown is something you would have to be way down close to Laredo, Texas, or somewhere like that, where we wouldn't get cold and cause a big gel, which could cause a catastrophic failure.
And to talk on the sustainability, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but U.S. Cold, just by using Smart Move that Reiner and Lewis implemented, building
Actually,
better
a load
trucks.
planner implemented that. We learned that in the quiz.
Oh, sorry. But
Or invented the name.
just using data and using that to drive our decisions on how we build our trucks, how do we make more efficient loads? It makes less loads. I mean, the nature of our program already is taking loads off of the road, trucks off of the road. But if we can further that even more, it's something that we're striving for.
Great. So just in terms of the future of our industry, near term, short term, what are you guys seeing or what are you guys hearing out there?
Obviously, I mean, we're going into seasonal freight with winter and with holidays coming up. So that's going to tighten the market a bit. The natural disasters we're looking at, unfortunately, in North Carolina, Florida, different regions, that always has an impact on the market. It's an election year. We expect that to have a big impact on the market. But I think RXO gave a great presentation of short-term and long-term. We're expecting, at least in the long-term, Q2 is what we keep hearing of next year, where the market's really going to flip.
Okay, so it's Q2. All right. Didn't hear that from me.
Again, kudos to RXO for that great graph. It looks like we were already trending in a very good direction before and everything, and then here we are, now we have the holidays and we have the hurricane. So it's a little bit complicated for us to say how we think it's going to be, because one thing's for certain is there's a lot of things uncertain.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we're seeing is those market instances or the catalysts. They aren't making the market go as crazy as they used to. They showed the graph where a hurricane or COVID or the polar vortex, it would throw the market into the next cycle. And we've seen a lot of different happenings in the logistics and transportation world that it's a little blip on the radar now. So I don't know if anybody knows what that big catalyst is going to be. I mean, we just saw a port, the entire east side of the country's ports shut down for 4 days, and we thought it was going to be the end of the world, and we haven't really seen a whole lot yet.
Well, I think they're holding off until January, so I'm curious what you guys think about the port strike and whether or not we'll see it again in January or not, or they're going to do something in the interim to try to resolve it. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, since I'm holding the mic, I'll give my 2 cents. I think that there's going to be something. I don't think that it's going to be as drastic as what we just saw, because I think they already settled on at least a partial, wage settlement. But the thing that's on the forefront of our minds is that on the East Coast, we see the majority of the food imports come out of there, and also the exports. We don't see much food go out or come in on the West Coast for us. But it's the automation piece, that those 4 days of closing down completely, the union workers don't go back to work very happy. They're not given the full, the full effort, and they even said that in some of those interviews that they're going to work at about 60% of their capacity. So I still do think there's going to be lingering effects.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Well, just on a side note, another thing that we've thought was really interesting is we've seen a lot of customers come to us actually wanting to dig into financials. So we obviously expect there to be, unfortunately, carriers leaving the market, which will tighten the market up. But yeah, recently we've had customers in a smart way to really look at the carriers they're working with and dig into those financially healthy or unhealthy companies, because we have seen out of nowhere, companies go out of business. And
So they were
it's
trying to mitigate risks then
completely,
by,
yeah.
by validating if you're a legit business.
But over the last few years, we didn't see people coming to us asking for financials, but we have in the last few months especially. I was at a carrier conference last week and with a big customer, and that was something they did a presentation on, a 30-minute presentation. Are your carriers financially healthy?
Are you guys getting asked the same questions, or? Excuse me. Yes, are you guys getting asked the same questions in terms of, providing stability or financials or anything during an RFP?
Well, yeah, I want to say the big customers that we have always ask for
Okay.
that type of information. They're not always asking us to send documentation of it, but I've always been honest and transparent with it in case they ask for the documentation, because I didn't want it to say two different things. In respect to the economy and where it's going, kind of conversation we were having just a minute ago, we were in a very similar situation this time last year. And January and February rolled around, and it made us all have like a false sense of it's coming back right at this second. But ever since then, we had seen a pretty much downward trend until this upward trend started. But we're just so uncertain whether it's a seasonal thing or whether it's a real thing. And if there's anybody in here who can tell me whether it's a seasonal thing or a real thing, I'd really like to know, because I base some of my purchases of equipment and investments and technologies upon that.
Great. Anything else you guys want to share in general with the audience? Okay, great. I'm not sure what time it is.
We got some time.
Okay, great. So I think we have time for some questions. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, great. Here, I'll come down there. I'll just come down.
Oh,
No, sure. I'm good.
sorry.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Tony Gurowski with the Carrier Tech Transing. My question is about Kory and his switch from DD15 engines to DD13 engines. What is the benefits that you see there?
Weight is number one for us. We are not we don't go to the West Coast, so we're not climbing mountains. Our trucks are governed at 64 miles an hour. We have no complaints from our driving fleet running what we're running. And like I say, we're saving about 500 pounds of weight, so.
No cost difference between the acquisition cost for the units, or is the same, or?
At the end of 4 years, we're not seeing when we trade them off, we're not getting. But if you look at a Freightliner Cascadia, and it's 4 years old, whether it's a DD15 or 13, we're not seeing a big value difference.
Thank you. Question for Brent. I mean, just a comment on Brent. Is it a real thing, or it's going to be a seasonal thing? The market based on the curve, it's never a real thing. It's just when it's going to drop.
I might need you to rephrase that for me one time. I didn't quite understand your question.
Is it going to be a seasonal thing, or is it?
He said it's always a real thing.
Right.
Never season. All right. Any other questions?
Don't be shy.
Don't
We'll
be shy.
edit it
You
out
can ask them
if
anything.
it doesn't.
You guys don't have any questions? Okay, great.
Even U.S. Cold people, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask.
Or if you want to ask each other questions.
So, Kory, do y'all primarily use that DD13 because of the region in which y'all operate versus, where we're at down on I-40, we're in the Ozarks, and we do have a lot of mountains, even though we're going into Texas. And we've found out that a smaller engine actually was less efficient. So is efficiency the reason why y'all do it, or just primarily the weight? Both. So I'm sure it is very efficient whenever you're operating up here in these plains and places like that. So, when you talk about speccing a truck and this and that, you have to do it according to your application. And if you are buying Freightliners, they have people that will come out and help you out with that. Doesn't mean they'll give you the right answers and everything, but you have to know your application and whether or not that truck or its wheelbase and the gearing of the rear ends and which final drive you choose to put in your transmission, all those things come into account according to the application at which you're using that piece of equipment.
This is probably a better question for Anna, Anna. when you guys are procuring carriers, we heard for how many years that there's a carrier shortage, there's a driver shortage, there's that looming, we're going to get into the 150,000 driver shortage is only 2 years away all the time. With the influx of carriers into the market during COVID, have you seen the slide that they showed that a lot of them went out of business and maybe it's rising a little bit? Is there any instance where you're seeing that there is trouble finding a carrier?
We haven't seen that because we work with so many carrier partners within different regions. So it hasn't, I don't know, I think there's always a narrative around a scarcity. There's too much, too little, whatever it may be. But that doesn't really affect us day to day. We haven't been able to find a truck somewhere. We can always find a truck. In our business, that's what brokers are needed for. That's what we sell. We have trucks everywhere. So, with the amount of freight that we're moving each week, operationally, internally, we focus on our operations teams building truck sheets, having go-to carriers in areas. So we're staying off those boards. We're trying to, at least. We're, just calling people direct. We have a load. We know the people that we want to work with. And we haven't seen a scarcity with drivers or trucks anywhere.
I was just going to ask about consignees and fees and penalties. Have you guys seen an uptick in those? For a while there, they kind of put some of those on pause. And are you seeing any of those come back? And to what extent?
I have not seen an increase
Okay.
the past year, no.
Okay. Fine.
Usually it's just like a misunderstanding of some kind, like we were talking about this morning. We'll have 5 drop trailers at a place, and we checked in a specific trailer, and the shipper went out there to that specific trailer and it wasn't running. Instead of just picking one of the 5 more that they had, they'll say that we owe them the fee, which we'll just resolve it through transportation, and I guess somehow their department will absorb it and we'll go on.
Okay, so you're not seeing any new fees coming out or any anticipation from any of those big consignees?
Not hardly consignee stuff. The biggest people that we have nicking and dinging these days are the third parties that we do business with, which is about 33% of our business. And how that happens is the drivers are intimidated by the technology. They feel like they don't want Big Brother looking over their shoulder. And, they download the app to get the load information, then they delete the app, And everybody clearly has it in their contract. And good for y'all. We signed a contract, we agreed to it, and it is what it is, and we'll have those drivers delete that app. But at some point in time, we made it a part of our disciplinary policy that they would pay that fine, so we've had a lot less of that happen. But that's the main place we found being deducted for anything was from third parties, just because they could.
Okay, yes. On their personal phones, I take it. On their personal cell phones?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's how you
yes.
track. That's
Yeah.
how they use MacroPoint, Trucker Tools, Fork Heights, whatever it may be.
For all both the carriers and the broker up here, how do the shippers educate you guys? Because it is interesting to hear you guys say that you haven't seen an uptick in fees when probably over 90% of the consignees that they're building those rates into deducting the invoice to the actual manufacturers. Are you seeing any heightened from the shippers saying that, hey, we know we're getting these fines, giving a dollar amount to them? Because I know we see that they're starting to quantify it and really show the impact to their bottom line. So I guess to flip that on its side, it's not an upfront to the driver or maybe directly to you guys, but are you seeing that from the actual manufacturer or shipper that they're trying to educate you guys on what fees they have?
There's been a lot of transparency surrounding that with us. We know whoever we're working with, the customer's usually saying, hey, these fees are built in, but don't pay them because we're paying them. It's built into the cost. So there's no hidden, that's not hidden to us. We know that's built into the rate.
Are you talking like OTIF fines?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, OTIF fines, we're seeing some customers, we won't name any names up here, but we're seeing some consignees actually on the transactional level, charging, a 5% deduction on that load. And when the manufacturer comes back to us, they'll actually show that we just became non-profitable on selling them those 2 pallets just in you guys being late.
I mean, for us, that's where we've kind of shined. We love the Walmart, Kroger, Costco. Shippers seem to be willing to pay more money for us to go there for on-time delivery. But I was told by a shipper a couple months ago that 95% on time is the real number. So, I mean, we're well north of that number, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and everybody really sitting in this room, you are a carrier for U.S. Cold because you are performing. We're not able to keep customers as customers if they're getting charged a crazy amount of fines, and that's one of our biggest sells to them is that how do we perform on time with our carriers so that they can avoid those fines. That's a very big part of our business.
Okay, we have another question.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a quick question actually related to the fees. Anna, you had mentioned that fees would potentially be waived. I was wondering if you could expand on that a little more and what situations that would occur in.
So, not necessarily for U.S. Cold, but just in general, if we see on the West Coast, if roads close because of weather, well, if we're delivering into that Walmart and there's a late fee, well, they're not charging that late fee because a highway was shut down because there was a blizzard or whatever that may be. So we've been able to mitigate those costs because actually proving, on these tracking tools, it's showing actually, red lines that the road's closed. So we've been able to, like I said, take screenshots of that, send that to either our customer or if we're scheduling the deliveries, direct to those, delivery places and show that this is the reason our truck is late. You can't fight a closure like that. So then they will waive that fee for us. Now, if it's just late because our, whatever reason that's on us, then we have to absorb that fee. And we absorb that. We're not pushing that onto our customer because of our driver being late. So we've been able to mitigate that through weather factors or whatever it may be if it's out of our hands, as you could say.
And not just another shameless plug for Kites, but it's a very good tool to be able to have that backup with the geofence. That were they there? Is the geofence correct? Because we do get a lot of carriers, our customers asking for the in and out times, any proof if there was an in gate, or even a lumper receipt that shows when they were there. There's a lot that. I think it goes to almost defaults to the fine, and then if you're able to back up and prove that you were there, that there are a lot of times where our customers are able to combat that and get that fine waived. It's all kind of done in the background where we don't really get to see those numbers back and forth, but it's definitely something that they're hiring people just to do because it's worth that money.
Great. Any final thoughts? Any other
I
questions?
think I would just say that this has been a very cool experience for the podcast, for the COLDCast. Thank you to everybody for jumping on this. It's not live. We'll do a lot of editing. Maybe they'll put one of those Instagram filters on me. So it's but no, we truly do appreciate. Kory mentioned we do have a carrier advisory board where we have a sampling of each size of carrier and a broker presence on it that we meet once, maybe twice a year, to really just stay in tune with the market and then stay in tune with each other so that we can tell them what's going on with us and vice versa. But this whole experience with the conference and the COLDCast, I really appreciate you guys being on it.
Yes, thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for being great participants. I appreciate the 2 questions that we got asked. I think we learned a ton today. So kind of the 3 big takeaways, at least from my perspective. We talked a little bit about a somewhat optimistic comeback. So I think that's helpful to know that by Q2 of next year, we should see an optimistic comeback.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah, and then we could, you never know. I think we also talked about, in order to mitigate some of the downturn right now, you need to be more efficient. So we talked a little bit about those efficiencies. And then I think we talked about kind of what's driving consumer behavior and how you guys think about the partnerships within the industry and how partnerships are so important. And I know from United States Cold Storage's perspective, we appreciate all of your partnerships and being able to talk like this and sharing all of this with everyone, because I think one of the great things about the COLDCast is that everybody walks away and learns something new. So we really appreciate your time and your insights. And with that, I say stay cool. All right, that's it. Thank you guys.